When a pregnant golden retriever was rescued and brought to the animal shelter, a new employee named Macy took it upon herself to make sure the dog got the care she needed. The vet had already told Macy that the puppies looked strange on the ultrasound. Still, nothing could have prepared her for what happened on delivery day. When the puppies were finally born, Macy was completely shocked. They looked like little cows. How could that even happen? Welcome to Wonderbot Animals. Macy woke up to loud howling coming from downstairs. Right away, she knew. It was time. Bella was about to give birth. Macy jumped out of bed and rushed over to the golden retriever's bed. They had already been through so much together, and now seeing Bella in pain was almost too much. But Macy knew she had to stay focused. There was no time to feel bad. She needed to help bring those puppies into the world. Still, she couldn't stop wondering. The vet had warned her these wouldn't be normal puppies. But what did that mean? Then she saw it. One of the puppies looked just like a tiny cow. What on earth had Bella just given birth to? And what was Macy supposed to do now? When the first puppy finally started to crown after 2 long hours of labor, Macy was stunned. The vet had tried to prepare her, but she never imagined this. It's not unusual for a dog found on the street to be pregnant when they come into a shelter. Out there, survival and reproduction are all they have. But what was unusual was how unprepared the rescue center was for this kind of situation. They did work with a vet, but the vet wasn't on site. So when a struggling pregnant golden retriever showed up, nobody really knew what to do. The shelter was already running low on staff, and it was clear this dog needed more care than most. Could they take care of her while handling everything else? Helping her wouldn't stop with the birth either. Once the puppies arrived, they'd need even more attention. On top of that, one of the senior technicians had a bad feeling about this pregnancy. Something just didn't seem right, and they needed to get to the bottom of it fast. Right now, they were talking through a lot of different options. Some were more hopeful than others. One idea was to transfer the dog to another shelter. Another was to try and find a volunteer to take her on. But sadly, euthanasia was also being brought up. It was heartbreaking to even think about, but with the shelter stretched so thin, they had to consider every possibility. Most of the staff were leaning toward putting her down. It was tough to accept, but they just didn't see how they could manage it all. What made the difference, though, was one of the newest and least experienced staff members, Macy. She refused to give up on the dog. Macy had always had a soft spot for animals, especially dogs. Since she was a kid, she dreamed of working with them. At first, she thought she'd become a vet. She even started school for it. But everything changed after a trip she took to Indonesia as part of a relief effort. Back in America, Macy had mostly seen happy dogs with owners who truly cared for them. But things were completely different in Indonesia. There, dogs were often thin, sick, and wandering the streets with no one looking after them. Macy hadn't even gone there to work with animals. Her goal was to help the local communities. But seeing the condition of those dogs broke her heart. When Macy returned to the States, she couldn't shake what she'd seen. She started researching street dogs and how people were helping them. To her surprise, she found out there were far more stray dogs than she'd ever realized, not just in her small hometown, but even more in the nearby big city. From then on, Macy knew what she wanted to do: help as many stray dogs as she could. At 18, she moved to Boston and applied to a rescue center that focused on strays. Because they were short-staffed, she got hired almost right away. Macy was still full of energy and hope when, during just her second week, the pregnant golden retriever, who they had named Bella, was brought in. As they discussed what to do with her, the possibility of euthanizing her came up. Macy couldn't believe it. She knew she had to do something. She couldn't stand by and let them put down a pregnant dog just because it was inconvenient. So Macy stepped up and offered to work extra hours, without pay, so she could take care of both her usual duties and Bella's needs. The shelter manager was touched by Macy's commitment and agreed. He gave Macy full responsibility for Bella's care. To make things easier, Macy decided to bring Bella home with her so she could keep an eye on her at night. For the next couple of weeks, Macy went back and forth between her house and the shelter, basically juggling 2 full-time jobs. Thankfully, she lived nearby and had a roommate who was also a dog lover and willing to help. Even though it was hard, Macy felt like she was doing something good. But things were about to get even more difficult. The other shelter workers tried to step in and cover some of Macy's tasks when they could, giving her a bit more breathing room to care for Bella. They were moved by how dedicated she was. Still, with the shelter always short on hands, there was only so much help they could give. And the truth was, Macy was starting to feel the weight of it all. Bella wasn't doing well in the last stretch of her pregnancy. Macy had to take her to the vet more than once, and each visit came with more stress, more time lost, and more money spent. Even though Macy kept going, part of her was starting to question if she could keep this up. What would happen once the puppies arrived? Could she afford to care for them too? She did her best not to let those thoughts take over. Right now, the only thing that mattered was Bella's health and making sure the puppies were okay. The vet was able to stabilize Bella with some medication, but Macy noticed something strange. Every time the vet looked at the ultrasound, he seemed puzzled. He admitted he couldn't see much clearly, but one thing he was almost sure of, Bella hadn't mated with another golden retriever, or even a lab. Whatever the puppies were, they didn't look like any kind of dog he'd expect. Macy couldn't understand it either. Was that even possible? The vet decided to show Bella's ultrasound images to a couple of his colleagues, but none of them could quite figure out what was strange about the puppies. That only made Macy more nervous. Did this mean something was wrong? Were the puppies not healthy? The thoughts started to weigh on her, especially considering how much time, effort, and money she had already poured into all of this. What if the puppies didn't survive? Since Bella had lived on the streets, she could have mated with almost any animal capable of breeding with dogs. That uncertainty made Macy even more uneasy. What exactly was she about to deal with once these babies were born? Would they even be puppies? Macy didn't think that was possible, but the vet had been oddly confident that these weren't normal dogs. She asked him directly if the puppies, or whatever they were healthy. He reassured her that even though the ultrasound looked odd, it showed no signs of sickness. For now, the puppies appeared healthy. That gave Macy at least some peace of mind. Whatever else was going on, their health was what mattered most to her. After that vet visit, Macy brought Bella home, knowing it would be just a few days before she gave birth. Macy made the smart decision to take a few days off from the shelter. She knew exactly where her attention needed to be now. Whatever the vet had seen, it was strange enough that Macy wasn't going to leave Bella's side when it happened. During those quiet days at home, Macy felt herself bonding more deeply with Bella. Even though the dog was clearly struggling, Macy could feel how much love she had to give. And every day, Macy's desire to keep Bella grew stronger. But that came with its own challenges. She lived in a small apartment and barely made enough money for herself. Taking care of Bella properly would already be tough, and that didn't even include the puppies. There was no way Macy could keep a full litter. She loved Bella and wanted to be there for her, but she couldn't take on that many dogs. It was just too much. Macy had been hoping she'd have more time to figure things out, to maybe come up with a plan for the puppies. But things didn't work out that way. The puppies were on their way. And soon. That night, Bella went into labor. Macy had really hoped it would happen during the day, so she'd be more rested. But of course, just her luck, it started at 2 a.m. Like everything else lately, it wasn't going to be easy. Before bed, Macy had set up a baby monitor next to Bella's pen, so she'd hear the dog if anything happened during the night. She knew it could be any time now, but staying awake around the clock wasn't realistic. So she placed the monitor, said goodnight to Bella, and went to sleep. She was in a deep sleep when the baby monitor suddenly erupted with sharp, panicked cries. For a moment, Macy wasn't even sure if she was dreaming. It took a few seconds to fully wake up and realize what was going on. She'd been running on fumes for days now, but once it hit her, she jumped into action. Still half asleep, Macy threw on an old t-shirt and some worn-out joggers and rushed downstairs. Things could get real very fast. When she flipped the light on, she was relieved to see that Bella was still only in the early stages of labor. Now Macy would have to put everything she'd learned at the shelter to good use. Bella had her tongue hanging out and was breathing heavily. It was starting. Bella's whole body moved with every push, her sides heaving hard. Macy quickly grabbed a stack of towels and a bucket of warm water. The pen helped keep the mess in one spot, but that didn't mean it wasn't messy. Macy still had her work cut out for her. She wanted to do everything she could for Bella, but she also knew this was something Bella mostly had to do on her own. Gently, she stroked Bella's face and whispered to her, making sure the dog knew she wasn't alone. After about 30 minutes of pushing, Macy finally saw the first puppy start to appear. Her heart was racing, part nerves, part excitement. She still had no idea what kind of puppies Bella would have. No one knew what kind of dog had fathered them. But that mystery was about to be solved, and Macy felt like she was holding her breath. But her excitement quickly turned into confusion, and then shock. As the first puppy was born, Macy stared at it, unsure what she was looking at. The spots, the snout, even the legs. This didn't look like a dog. It looked more like a tiny baby cow. Macy had never seen a puppy like this before. But how could that be? Genetics could get weird, sure, but the puppies should look at least a little like Bella. She was their mother after all. There was no time to figure it out. More puppies were coming. Macy gently cleaned the first puppy and wrapped it in a towel to keep it warm while waiting for its siblings. Bella started pushing again, and the next puppy came out, looking exactly like the first. Then another, and another. They all had the same odd, cow-like look. Macy even pinched herself to make sure she wasn't dreaming. But unless she was dreaming about dreaming, she was very much awake. After 2.5 long hours, all of the puppies had finally arrived. It was 4:30 in the morning, and Macy sat there, still blinking in disbelief. They all looked so strange. But this was real. It had actually happened. Not knowing what else to do, Macy decided to stay up and watch over them until morning. She needed to make sure Bella and the puppies were okay until she could get them to the shelter's vet. Hopefully, he'd have some answers. As the sun slowly rose, Macy couldn't stop looking at the puppies. Was there really something wrong with them, or was it just her imagination? She hoped the vet could explain. As soon as she reasonably could, Macy carefully loaded Bella and the unusual puppies into her car and drove straight to the shelter. She even arrived before the vet did. Macy was anxious to figure out what was going on, but deep down she reminded herself of what really mattered. Bella and the puppies were alive, and for now they seemed healthy. The vet would confirm that soon enough. Once the vet arrived, Macy brought them all in. He raised an eyebrow as soon as he saw the puppies, but then he got to work. First, he checked on Bella. She was tired and slightly dehydrated, even though Macy had done her best to care for her. But the good news was that she was okay. She was going to be fine. Then came the real mystery, the puppies. The vet understood why Macy was concerned. He agreed they looked unusual, but after a thorough exam, he finally figured out what had happened. The spots were likely because Bella had mated with a Dalmatian that had strong, dominant genes. Dog genetics can be unpredictable. As for the other strange features, the almost cow-like appearance, those could be explained too. The puppies had been born almost a full month early. Because of that, they hadn't fully developed yet, which explained their odd features. But that raised a bigger question. Why had Bella gone into labor so early? The vet's best guess was that the stress and trauma Bella experienced while living on the streets had caused her to go into early labor. Macy had done everything she could to care for her, but some things were just out of anyone's control. Because the puppies were premature, their health was still at risk. The vet recommended keeping them at the shelter under close care. Thankfully, all 7 of the puppies survived. Over time, they developed into healthy little dogs. Once they were weaned and old enough, the shelter put them up for adoption. Every single one of them found a loving home in less than 2 weeks. They no longer looked like cows, just adorable Dalmatian Golden Retriever mixes that families couldn't get enough of. While the puppies found their new homes, Bella was another story. She was older and had clearly been through a lot. Macy couldn't bear to part with her, so she made the decision to adopt Bella herself and give her the life she deserved. Macy still works at the shelter to this day, and every now and then Bella comes along, wagging her tail and cheering up the other dogs who need comfort, just like she once did. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Wonderbot Animals for more real-life rescue stories like this one. Thanks for watching.